Okay.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Welcome to our Online Planning and Development Committee. The meeting is being hello? Oh, yeah. The meeting is being live streamed over YouTube. So welcome in advance of this meeting. And, sorry about this. This meeting is being live streamed over YouTube. So welcome to the meeting. Those who are tuning in. The agenda and papers for this meeting have been circulated in advance of this meeting and are available on the Council's website. The role of this meeting is to consider the planning applications that are going to be presented today, to debate them and hopefully determine them. By way of housekeeping, can I ask all who are in the meeting to keep your microphone off or on mute during the presentation and discussion, and indicate that you want to speak by using the raise your hand function, or as always, if you struggle with the raise your hand, it's important that your views are heard. I will call on you to speak. Remind all that unless you switch out your video off, you will be visible in the meeting display. Firstly, I'll ask the officers who will be presenting information to introduce themselves. If during the meeting any members of the committee wish to speak or ask a question, can I also ask at that point? Right, I'm Councillor Goldsworthy Bob. Dear Michael.
Hi, my name's Councillor Michael Hood and I'm the Vice Chair.
Brendan.
Sorry, I just had to switch my microphone on. I'm Brendan McNeely. I'm the Legal Manager, Property Planning and Projects, providing legal support to the meeting.
Eleanor.
Good morning. My name's Eleanor Cockbain. I'm going to be presenting the applications to committee this morning.
And Emma.
Morning. My name is Emma Lucas. I'm the Planning Manager. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We do have speakers registered today, so I'll explain the speaking process. We'll consider the application with speakers first. For those who have registered to speak, I'll call on you in turn after the officer has given their presentation and answered any questions from the members of the committee. You will each be able to speak for 4 minutes. And normally the applicant is able to hear. Members of the committee may want to ask you questions after you have spoken. Can I ask you to mute your microphone unless I have called you to speak? And after you have spoken, if you speak out of turn, we can mute your microphone or remove you from the meeting. We're now going to the main agenda. Apologies for absence will have been forwarded to the admin officer and recorded. Minutes of the last meeting, do we approve them? Yep. That's it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay, declarations, we have none. But if anybody feels that they need to declare something as we progress, up, and I'll take legal advice and we'll determine how to progress. Agenda items for information only. The reports pack include 4 reports for your information about enforcement appeals and planning obligations. Okay, and now we can begin the meeting in full, and the first application is Tynemouth Terrace, Woodside. You okay with that, Emma?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you, Chair. I shall hopefully bring up the presentation as the Chair said, and as ever, if you find what I'm saying is out of sync with the presentation on screen, then do please indicate and we'll try and fix any issues that we have with the sound or the images. So the title page you have on screen now is for Tynemouth Terrace in Teams, and the application is for the change of use from a dwelling house to a C2 use, which is a residential children's home in this particular case. And as you can see that there, the recommendation on screen is to grant consent. So the property is a mid-terrace house. It's got residential properties to each side of it. Bensham Crescent is opposite. We've got St Aidan's C.V. Primary School there to the north, and Elsington Primary School to the back of the property. Actually, the vehicular access you might see along the back lane of the property actually provides some of the vehicular access to Eslington School. And car parking, as you might also be able to make out, is to the front of this application site. So the next slide is just to hopefully maybe show you a little more clearly how this application site relates to the rest of the terrace. It's a third property in from the northern end, and hopefully there just gives a little more clarity of the extent of the application site. As you can see, it runs up to the back lane that was indicated in the aerial photograph. So we have here an application for a change of use from a dwelling house to a residential institution. There would be a maximum of 4 young people living in the property at any one time, with 24-hour staffing proposed, with 2 members of staff on site at all times. So in terms of the floor plans that we have, there are no external changes to the property proposed, and the floor plans are basically as existing. So what the proposal is, there are no sort of internal alterations, but what's proposed is that there would be one of the bedrooms on the ground floor, and as you can see, then other very typical functions of a normal residential property. Moving up to the first floor, there are 2 further bedrooms, staff facilities and bathroom, and then into the roof space, which is as existing, there's the 4th of the bedrooms. So in terms of the site context, there's obviously the front of the property, as you can see, subtly indicated with the arrow, parking to the front of the house, and traditional boundary treatment around the property, the front garden itself, railings and brick piers. And then to the rear, again, looking there at the property on the right-hand side, you can see the back lane is part of the access to Eslington Primary School. We have received 6 letters of objection, including from Councillor Cleland, who I'll understand is going to be speaking shortly. The objections received are as follows: that there is currently another care home in operation which causes amenity issues. The proposed development would result in antisocial behaviour, and there would result in additional parking demand. The reference to the other care home is at the opposite end of Tynemouth Terrace and is currently being investigated by our enforcement team, but is entirely a sort of separate entity and unrelated to this premises. So just to give you an indication of where the representations have been made from, as you can see, there's a little concentration towards the bottom end of the terrace, which seems to relate more to where the alleged other care home is operating from. So very brief in terms of information to show you from photographs and floor plans. Obviously very straightforward application. You'll have seen from your agendas that we do have a policy in our newly adopted MSGP local plan document number 11 that seeks to secure specialist accommodation in suitable locations, and this is considered to meet the policy tests in that criteria. Due to the scale of the premises, but subject to securing a management plan, which is recommended condition number 3, it's considered that the property would not give rise to demonstrably greater impacts than if it continued in use as a family dwelling. And it's on that basis, therefore, that your offices are recommending that planning permission is granted subject to those conditions, which, as I say, does include for a management plan set out in your agenda papers. Thank you. I'll take that presentation down. Chair, you're on mute.
You're on mute, Chair.
I'm being caught out. Oh no. Does anybody have any questions of Eleanor?
Yes, I do, Chair.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Can I had a look at this site because it's Ashdown Care Homes, I think, who Gary Candish is either the managing director. I mean, when I looked at the site, it looked as if this had already been established. Is this sort of after the? I mean, has this already been agreed?
It doesn't have planning permission. That's what you're being asked to consider now. But I do understand that it is in operation. Mr. Candish is due to speak after Councillor Cleland, so he might be able to give a little more clarity on what's happened.
Thank you. Because I thought it might have been retrospective because it's already. I mean, it looks quite well established to me. You know, when you go on the website. And Chair, can I just say Maria Hall is having difficulties getting on to this. She's waiting for IT, so she's put her apologies in for now. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eleanor.
Any further questions? Okay, we'll move on to the speakers. Councillor Cleland.
Thank you, Chair.
You've got 4 minutes, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. I've been asked by local residents to express their concerns about this application to the Planning Committee. There are actually 2 care homes are existing in Tynemouth Terrace, one owned by the applicant, which supports adults, and another at number 1, which now seems to house several young people. Number 1, as the officer said, doesn't seem to have had planning permission, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Local residents have made several complaints about noise and disruption from number 1 over several months, but no investigation or enforcement action has ever been taken. And this has resulted in a loss of confidence by residents in the council's ability or readiness to listen to their views, and that's why I have been asked to represent them now. Following on from that, residents are therefore querying the assessment of shared accommodation in Tynemouth Terrace. Residents feel that in a terrace of 12 family homes, 3 care homes, so 1/4, does in fact represent an overconcentration. Residents have also asked me to say that they already have to endure noise and nuisance from the existing care homes, especially number 1, and that visits from police and ambulance are already regular occurrences throughout the night. Residents have asked me to say that they're very concerned about the potential for antisocial behaviour from the proposed new home at number 10. This application is for a children's home. Residents fear that, whilst behaviour and language is controlled and managed within the home, that control will not extend beyond its boundaries. These children will be challenged and challenging. Residents feel that they have a reasonable, or they should have a reasonable expectation of peace and quiet in their own homes and the immediate environment. But instead, residents of Tynemouth Terrace are deeply anxious that they may have to endure antisocial behaviour outside their homes from the children of number 10 and from the friends and family who visit. Residents have asked me to say also that they are already too familiar with the consequences of poor behaviour from pupils at local schools, as well as with the school response that it's not the school's problem as it happens outside school boundaries. And they fear that there'll be a similar response from the managers of this children's home. Finally, residents have asked me to say that they're already finding it difficult to park outside their homes, and that they fear that cars belonging to yet more members of staff and official visitors will exacerbate those problems. There is, it has to be said, already a risk of car vandalism in this area. So understandably, residents want to be able to park as close to their own living room windows as they can, to be able to check on their vehicle security. And they're worried that this proposed new home will put pressure on existing parking bays. And I should add, residents have asked me to say that it's not possible to park at the rear of the properties. This needs to be kept clear for vehicular access to Eslington School. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Any questions of the Councillor Cleland? No? Okay, thank you, Brenda. Gary Candish. Oh.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, you've got 4 minutes. Okay.
Great, thanks. Apologies, but I've had a little bit of technical trouble, so I've missed a little bit, but I'm on now. So first of all, my name is Gary Carnish. I'm the director, Ashdown Care, and obviously I understand that there's three. So I'm going to read a short statement, but there is three issues appertaining to the property. The first one, objections based on amenities. As well, I was quite shocked to hear that somebody said that we operate from One Tynemouth Terrace as an unregulated care home. That is not. I don't know anything about that, and it's certainly nothing to do with us. However, we do operate a small care facility at 9 Tynemouth Terrace and have done actually for the last 27 years. And we have been exemplary in our conduct. The home supports 3 adults with learning disabilities who live successfully together in one household. And the proposed children's home will only be for 4 people. So I find it difficult to see how that would have any discernible impact on the local amenities. To put things in context as well, if we move to objection 2, antisocial behaviour, at 9 Tynemouth Terrace, which have been operating for 27 years, we employed a gentleman who lived at 11 Tynemouth Terrace, and it is our understanding that actually he's been instrumental in whipping up opposition against this and making also all sorts of unfounded allegations against us. In fact, when he learnt that we'd bought 10 Tynemouth Terrace, he reported it to Councillor Cullen, saying that we were operating some sort of unregulated care facility, and I emailed Councillor Cullen in December, and she said, yes, I understand, I've already looked into it, and I was able to establish the facts that this was untrue. So I think, in our opinion, he's made unsubstantiated and exaggerated negative statements about the proposal, and certainly by the sound saying that we operate at 1 Tynemouth Terrace, that is totally untrue. Of course, antisocial behaviour is a risk with any new people moving into the street and isn't pleasant for the residents, so we understand the concerns. However, we believe the risk to be potentially lower due to the expert, highly trained staff team that will be supporting the children 24/7 supervision at all times. And we've completed a thorough locality risk assessment, which clearly identifies and mitigates the risks. Our ethos is to provide a safe management of children and young people within the property, establishing a robust de-escalation techniques while supporting young people to value their home and surroundings rather than a police response and criminalising our looked after children. Careful consideration will always be given to the match of the children. The layout of the property means that only 1 child will be on the ground floor, 1 in self-contained flat in the attic and 2 in the middle floor. It's a spacious property where young people would not be invading each other's space. And as mentioned, we have operated another care facility for the last 27 years, and there has not been 1 case of antisocial behaviour in the facilities that we operate next door, not 1. Furthermore, and perhaps most significantly, the police have completed a thorough crime risk assessment, assessing the likelihood of crime occurring at this location, taking into consideration the design and proposed use and development and the frequency and pattern of offending in the immediate area, and they do not have any objections based on this. As regards the parking demand, I understand that highway safety is an important consideration. However, the house is in a quiet cul-de-sac. Road safety measures are in place because of the school. There are only going to be 2 staff on. That home could easily accommodate a bigger family if it wasn't for the children, and none of the children will drive anyway. And there might be
remaining, Mr. Candlish.
Right. Okay. So I'll quickly finish then. So we feel that's unjustified. So in conclusion, we've been working with Gateshead Council for 30 years, providing high quality, safe, inclusive care and support for the people of Gateshead. There's a demand for this service, which has been discussed, and the scheme's also received significant support from the Housing Strategy Commissioner, Joanne Waters, the Corporate Parenting Officer, Julie Young, the Children's Manager, Andrea Houlihan, the Assistant Strategic Director, and Councillor Gary Haley, the Cabinet Minister for Children and Young People, who we wrote to at the beginning of this, said he was looking forward, bringing our looked after children closer to Gateshead is a key priority for us, and I hope Ashdown Care is able to support the service users to benefit in this scheme. And the scheme's also been recommended by planning. So I hope this now satisfies Councillor Cullen's concerns, and I can assure that if we are successful, we will work hard to allay the neighbours' concerns and build a trusting community relationship in a positive, collaborative way within the neighbourhood.
Can you finish up now, please? Time is up.
Finished. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any? Lynn, your hands up to the speaker. Lynn?
Yes, Chair, thank you. Couple of questions for Mr. Candlish. One is about the client group that would be housed in this particular facility. And the other one is that he talked about building relationships with the local community. I wondered if you could actually tell us how we might go about that. I think there's a fine line here, Chair, between what are material planning considerations and what aren't. But I think the issue is if it's about loss of residential amenity because of a proliferation of premises like these within that particular street, then we as a committee need to be sure that we feel it would not create a detriment to the local community by housing another facility like this here. So if Mr. Candlish could answer those two questions, who's going to be living there and what are you going to do to improve relationships with the local community?
Yeah, as previously stated, I don't know anything about number one, and if that's an illegal operating care facility, I think that should be looked into. Would be an expression of that would be my opinion. However, as regards to living in that specific home, it would be children aged from 11 to 17 who are Gateshead children living in the Gateshead area. A lot of whom have been housed hundreds and hundreds of miles away. They've been pulled out of their family, their friends, their environment, and housed hundreds of miles away because there's no facilities within Gateshead for that. There's also a huge cost associated with that as well, up to sometimes £10,000 a week to house children outside of the area, and that cost would be reduced by 300 to 400% if from a costing point of view. So. There's lots of reasons, and we're a 30-year provider with Gateshead Council. We're going to be registered by Ofsted. We're registered by CQC. We've just been approved by Ofsted. This is not an unregulated service. This is going to be left to God and good nature, which apparently seems to have happened at number one, and certainly hasn't happened at 9 Tynemouth, because we are a registered service with an excellent CQC rating at the moment, a good CQC rating. So, as regards fostering the issues with the neighbourhood. We did offer to meet up and talk with Councillor Cullen when we emailed her, and we were hoping that would be the case, but then obviously an objection came in. I would hope to have a meeting after this and discuss it with Councillor Cullen and go and speak to the neighbours. I'm happy to show them around the house. I'm happy to let them know more about us and to show our experience and track record of supporting people within the area. So. Obviously, as I've mentioned, we have had a bit of an acrimonious relationship with the neighbour at 11 Tyneville, and that's because he used to work for us. We've got very exacting standards, and whilst we're giving as much support as we possibly could to become a valued member of staff, he felt as if he couldn't meet our standards and handed his notice in. So as you can imagine, that has created some issues, and I do believe that he's already made scurrilous remarks, in my view, about us at 10 Tyneville, saying we were operating unregulated care facilities, and they were found to be totally unfounded as well. So I'm quite happy to sit, to talk with the neighbours, to show them around, to reassure them, and to involve. And as I say, we've had that house at 9 Tynemouth Terrace for 27 years, and we haven't had one antisocial complaint. We operate, and we've got a whole fleet of professionals behind us here to help us, develop a group of children that will get on well together, that will work together, etc., as well. So hopefully that's answered your question.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay then, with that, Lynn. Yeah, Keith Wood.
Thank you, Chair. My question's partly been answered with regard to the age of the children. It was just an additional question in terms of the length of the stay of the children in the proposed home, Mr. Candlish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the length of the stay, it will be dependent, but the idea is it's not going to be transient. It would be more likely this will be their home until they reach adulthood. So at 18, legally, they would have to move on. And one of our strengths as a care provider is that we then help facilitate a smooth transition from childhood to adulthood by helping people find accommodation and supporting them in the new setting until they get jobs and things like that. So that is a strength based of ours, and it is certainly another need within there seems to be a fragmented approach where people hit 17 and come to 18, that there's not a natural transition, and part of our skill set is to help that, so the children don't just suddenly become an adult and then are then I'll left to God and good nature, for want of a better description.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Okay, is that Ferdinand? Did you want to ask a question? Councillor Ferdinand?
Chair, I've taken the hand down. I think the questions are more for the officers.
Okay. Anybody else? Kath McCartney, your hands up.
Yes, please. Thank you. A couple of my questions have been answered, but you say you own 9 Tynemouth Terrace. Is that for children as well?
No, that's for adults with learning disabilities, and they live together and have done for a long period now as a group, as a family household, and that is registered with the Care Quality Commission and inspected regularly, and we have good CQC ratings for that, and there's been no incidents of antisocial behaviour. So it's a good service that we've operated for 27 years.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, you've got your hand up. Is it a question for the?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Candish. Can you, when you're on your website, there's a thing for Tynemouth on your website. There's photographs and everything. Is that the photograph from? Is that the photographs from number 9, or is it for number 10?
I don't think we've got anything in for number 10 yet. It's number 9. That's the facilities at number 9 that you'll be looking at. If you look at Tynemouth on the website, I've got it up here. That's actually number 9. That is our care facility next door for the people with learning disabilities. So it's actually next door to number 10, as you can see, but it's the left-hand side property on the main picture of the website. Right.
Okay. So is that's I've got it up on my phone. So that's number 9, the one where you've got the young man standing in front. Is that number 9?
That's number 9 Tynemouth, yes.
Number 9. So number 10 hasn't been opened yet.
Haven't put up number 10 yet. No.
Okay. Thank you. I've got a question for the officer. Will I wait until we finish?
We'll get around to that. Michael, you got a question?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. There was a suggestion that you're already operating Mr. Candish out of this property. Is that correct?
No, it's absolutely not correct. And again, I'm really concerned about that because we've had many officers out, and I'm really concerned. I'm fairly sure it's come from 11 Tynemouth, the neighbour who we used to employ us. But I know that was made from day one, and I think Councillor Cullen called out and actually walked up the street. I mean, the house has had considerable refurbishment work done, and it had scaffolding up, no central heating, and the neighbour concerned was saying that we were operating a care facility out of there and we weren't regulated, and made a formal objection just because we bought the house. And I think, in my opinion, and this is obviously my opinion, this gentleman has gone and he's whipped up.
You've made that point a number of times, and it's really not a plan.
Okay.
So thank you anyway. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for the clarification, Mr. Candish. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions of the speaker? No, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Okay, any questions of Eleanor?
Yes, Bob. If I could. In the report, it says that there's 6 letters of objection. So I'm just wondering, I mean, there must have been several people on the street who put objections in. Is that correct?
Yes, Councillor. I showed the plan that showed where the representations had been received from. I can put that back up again if you missed it.
Oh, well, maybe I have. No. Sorry, but...
Do you want me to show it again?
Yes, do you mind?
No, I don't mind. Just have to find it. There we go. I'll just share my screen again there for you.
Thank you.
So hopefully on the screen there you can see the as it says on the legend at the top. These are only representations where we have had a postal address provided. So as you can see, there are 4 triangles to indicate objectors. I have referred to there being 6 letters, including from Councillor Cleland. So I'm not in a position to tell you if we've had one just with an email address where that person lives.
Right.
But that's the slide that was shown earlier in the presentation.
Right. I was just I'm sorry, Alan. I thought I must have missed that, but I mean, it looks to me as it's just I was thinking of Mr. Candish's point where he was saying that the objections had come from from number 11, but it looks to me as if they've come from another several addresses on the street.
Yeah, the just for members, the other care home that's been referred to that Mr. Candish has categorically said is nothing to do with them is at number 1, which is at the bottom end of the sort of most southerly, as shown on that plan, at the opposite end of the terrace to the applicant's property.
Right, so that would make 3 care homes on that street, one of which is not being agreed by planning. Is that right?
No, that's not correct. No, in planning terms, and how Mr. Candish has described the activities at number 9, as they are people living basically as a household with no care provided, we would consider that still to be a dwelling house. So
right.
In planning terms, and I obviously can't speak for any other registration or requirements in terms of care standards, but in planning terms, from how it's been described to me, and appreciate, I haven't had the opportunity to go into detail, but that sounds to me like it's a dwelling house and not a C2 use. So in planning terms, we have the current application for the proposed children's facility that Mr. Candish is applying for, and we have an alleged use at number 1, which our enforcement team are investigating, and to involve the private sector housing team as well are involved in that investigation. Unfortunately, with resources being as they are at the moment and the focus on COVID enforcement, planning enforcement matters are obviously taking rather longer to get through, but the private sector housing team is investigating the alleged use at number 1, sorry. Number
1.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Kath Ferdinand, did you have your hand up? Kath?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's partly been answered by what Dot's just asked, but my query is about number 1, and I'm glad to hear that it is being investigated one way or the other, just to clear it up. If it did happen that, I'm not saying this is what's happened, but if it did happen that there was operating going in number 1, that would be 3 houses in the street. Fair enough, the adults one wouldn't be classed as a care home, but would that have if it was operating from number 1, would that have an effect on this application?
We have to look at this application on its own merits. If part of the specialist housing accommodation policy in the MSGP says that there is a concern about a concentration of such uses, then that is a legitimate issue for members in this forum. I'll have to just juggle things slightly to bring up that specific policy. They're new policies, and it's taken a little time to be entirely comfortable with them. So policy MSGP 11 is housing for specific groups. And the policy says specialist and supported accommodation and care schemes will be expected to, and its first criteria is provide on-site or have a good accessibility to shops, services, community facilities and open space appropriate to the needs of the intended occupiers, their carers and visitors, and or have good accessibility to public transport routes. And then there's some clarification about what that means in terms of gradient distance to services. There is no part of that policy that includes a presumption that there has to be a test about concentration, but obviously there is, as ever, policies in national and local policy to do with amenity. So whilst it's correct for members to be concerned about the impact of this use, there is not a quota, if you like, for the number of care facilities that any one stretch of street can accommodate. But it's part of the weighing up. But there isn't. I'm just trying to think if there was something. I know it's just like a bit of a random pluck from the air, but when we're looking at hot food takeaway applications, you might recall there's a degree of balancing of a concentration and how that impacts on other uses in terms of retail function and so on. So we don't have that test when we're looking at specialist accommodation. And as I've said, the one at number 9 in planning terms would not be treated any differently than any other family house anyway.
Thank you very much, Eleanor. That's really clarified it for me.
If I may also, because I keep forgetting to mention, and I do apologise, that when Mr. Candish spoke, he mentioned the police, and we have consulted the police on this application, and they have not objected to the application. So apologies for missing that out of my presentation to date, but just to clarify that as well.
It's in the report, I think, Eleanor.
It is, yes, but I just wanted to make sure you were all aware.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eleanor. Thorough as always. Well done. Right, any further questions of Eleanor? No? No further questions?
Chair, I've got my hand up. Just that I'm prepared to move something if you're ready for that stage of the meeting.
Okay, then.
I'm happy to move that we accept the officer's recommendation to grant permission. I did have some initial concerns, but they've been allayed from the presentation that we've had today. I suppose my concerns were borne out maybe by some of the incidents that have been reported from number 1. I wasn't aware of anything prior to this meeting about number 1, but obviously I would have had concerns if it was a similar development to a similar application that came before committee maybe about 18 months ago in another part of Gateshead. So I'm quite happy to with this current application to move that we grant permission.
Yeah, thank you. Is that seconded?
I'd like to second that, Chair.
That's okay then. So it's been moved and seconded that the application be granted. Okay, so we're going to go to the vote now. You either say grant or refuse. Okay. When Helen asks the question, is that clear? Grant or refuse? If you're in favour, grant. Against, refuse. Helen, are you okay?
I'm ready, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Okay.
Councillor Burnett.
Grant.
Thank you. Councillor Caffrey.
Grant.
Councillor Dickey.
Grant.
Councillor Ferdinand.
Grant.
Councillor Geddes.
Grant.
Thank you. Councillor Curtin. Councillor Curtin. Councillor Lee.
Grant.
Councillor McCartney.
Grant.
Councillor McMaster.
Grant.
Councillor Oxbury.
Grant.
Councillor Turnbull.
Grant.
Oh, Lee, is that you?
Was that Councillor Curtin?
Looks like my voice changed there. Grant.
Grant.
Thank you, Councillor Curtin. Councillor Turnbull, sorry.
Grant.
Thank you. Councillor Wolf.
Grant.
Councillor Wheeler.
Grant.
Councillor Wood.
Grant.
Councillor Anderson.
Grant.
Councillor Craig.
Grant.
Councillor McClure.
Grant.
Councillor Ord.
Grant.
Councillor Patterson.
Grant.
Councillor Hood.
Grant.
And Councillor Goldsworthy.
Grant.
Thank you.
Okay, that's unanimous. The application's been granted. Thank you. Okay. We'll now move on to application number 1, which is Dunston Hill Hospital. You okay to start that one? I'll know, is you?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here. I'm always here somewhere. So the hopefully what you have on screen now is the title page for item 1. This is the Dunston Hill Hospital site on Wickham Highway in Dunston Hill and Wickham East Ward. And the application is a reserved matters application relating to 35 houses. The outline application there was submitted in 2013. And as you can see, the recommendation is to grant planning permission subject to a legal agreement. So before we get into too much of the detail of this one, I need to set the scene a little bit for you. The outline application, as I'm sure you'll all recall, a reserved matters application comes in as the subsequent phase of the approval process when an outline application has been granted. You can either apply for planning permission through a full application where you give all of the information up front in one go, or you can do sort of multi-stage process of securing an outline planning permission, which establishes some of the context of the future development, and then apply for other details as what's called reserved matters at a later date. So in this case, the outline planning permission was granted in November 2016 for 35 houses, and all matters were reserved except for the access. However, the outline application excluded the rectangular area of land shown on your screens, which is the location of the Woodside Center. And although it was the applicant's long-term intention to develop the entirety of the former hospital site for housing, the timing of the decanting and reprovision of the hospital facilities meant that in 2013, at least, when the outline was submitted, the NHS, who were the applicants at that time, weren't in a position to include that particular part of the site within the application, hence the sort of slightly peculiar cutout of that rectangular area. That outline planning permission for the 35 houses was granted subject to a Section 106 agreement for off-site affordable housing and also off-site ecological mitigation. Since the outline permission was granted and the hospital services have been provided elsewhere, the site of the Woodside Center has now also become available, and separately on your agenda papers you'll have no doubt seen that we do have a separate full application for 11 houses on the rectangular piece of land, which, as well as being the site of the Woodside Center, is also the former walled garden of the wider estate. So just to things to point out on the plan that's in front of you, obviously, is the rectangular area which is excluded from this current reserve matters application, and then the land bounded by the blue line, at the northern end of the site, which I'll come on to. So just to give a little bit more context, the very southern edge of the site fronts onto Wickham Highway. For people who don't know the hospital site, you might have spotted that's a rather more distinctive U or C-shaped building at Mansion Heights, which is the estate immediately sitting to the east of the application site. And as you can see, this application area excludes that sort of almost white-looking U-shaped building with parking, which is within the walled garden, where we have the separate application. And then another view just to show a bit more of the wider context of the site, and you can see that walled garden area a bit more clearly, and the various hospital buildings which sit behind the Woodside Center. You can see there's a sort of open land in front of the walled garden to Wickham Highway, the Mansion Heights estate there to the right-hand side of the screen, and beyond the large rectangular footprint building at the top end of the screen is open pasture land. Down the left-hand side of the image, you can see a belt of trees there, and that some of that is ancient woodland. So the application site that we have for the reserved matters is on screen now. As you can see, it excludes that rectangular bit of land. The site is within Wickham Conservation Area and also within the green belt. But those issues, along with the highway impacts and the landscape impact of the proposed houses, was considered at outline stage. So that's not something that we need to go over in terms of the assessment of the of this current application. However, the outline was granted subject to an indicative layout and a design code, and this application doesn't deviate significantly from either of those. You'll see down the western side of the site, there's a buffer provided to the site of nature conservation importance and ancient woodland. As you can see, there are houses built only on one side of that road, so that's intended to keep the development as away from any pressures for cutting back of trees and give a visual and ecological buffer, a bit of a gap to that particular boundary. Right at the southern frontage, we've got a bit of open space, and you can see there the blue shaped area is a SUDS feature in the general location of where there's an existing balancing pond. So what this image is then just infilling the land within the walled garden, which is in this separate application. It's relevant to bring this to your attention now because the inclusion of the land in the walled garden has allowed for the affordable housing to be provided within the site, and also the inclusion of the land to the north, where you can see the word Dunston Hill written in the sort of green areas. That's also allowing for ecological mitigation to happen within the site. And this again just shows how the two developments relate to each other. In terms of representations, we have had in your agendas, there's a reference to a single letter of objection that's been received, raising concerns about harm to the conservation area, the neighbouring estate and the field, and that it would have highway implications in terms of traffic generation and parking. Your update report refers to a single letter of support which has been received, which comments that the development would introduce additional housing stock and would be a good use of the derelict hospital site. So just as the plan there, just to show the location of that single objection representation relative to the site. So we've got some photographs now to take you through. So this is from Wickham Highway, looking towards the junction of the Mansion Heights estate. And then following the access road from Wickham Highway, the houses of the Mansion Heights estate there, to see the grey roofs to the right-hand side of the image. And then this is the face of the walled garden with the roof of the Woodside Center visible. The next photographs are just a few to show the buildings within the site, the old hospital buildings. And I'll just go through those. The building there that you see with the there's a feature on its roof is the very large rectangular building that was at the northern end of the site. There remains some aspects of building interest within the site. The top right-hand corner shows a photograph of an Anderson shelter. The bottom right-hand corner are the remains of the gardener's cottage, and the bottom left photograph is a bit of the walled garden. The Anderson shelter and the gardener's cottage are both very close to the Wickham Highway boundary. And so part of what we're proposing is that there should be building recording of these particular structures. And just to go on to show you a little bit of the building, the houses that are proposed, a couple of house types just to show you. All of the houses, all of the 35 houses are either 4 or 5 bedroom. As you can imagine, quite sort of executive style and quite generous internal layouts. certainly providing adequate space as required by the core strategy policy. And then just as an example of the elevations in the floor plan were just shown at the house to the right hand side of this image, but just to give you a better idea of the style of housing that's proposed. And again, different house type. And again, so again, that's the type of housing that's proposed as part of this development. So the application, as I say, this is a reserved matters application. It is recommended for approval. What we're looking to do is to link this application with the full application for the 11 houses in the walled garden through a legal agreement, which would make sure that, taken as a sort of holistic, the whole of the hospital site being developed for housing, that would mean that we could secure both affordable housing on site and also, sorry, that should say on site ecological mitigation rather than off site. Sorry, that's my my error there. So to get both of those provided on site and linked with the full application, which, as I say, is elsewhere on your agendas. That's all I have to say on that. I'll take the presentation down. Thank you.
Thank you, Eleanor. Does anyone have any questions of Elma? Can't see any. Oh. No questions? Oh. Anybody want to move anything?
Chair, I'd like to move the officer recommendation to grant.
Is that seconded?
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that the officer recommendation be granted. Again, if you're in favour, grant. If you're against, refuse. Helen?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Burnett.
Grant.
Councillor Caffrey.
Grant.
Councillor Dickey.
Grant.
Councillor Ferdinand.
Grant.
Councillor Geddes.
Grant.
Councillor Curtin. Councillor Curtin.
You're coming when Jimmy's turn is.
Grant. Councillor Lee.
Grant.
Councillor McCartney.
Grant.
Councillor McMaster.
Grant.
Councillor Oxbury.
Grant.
Councillor Turnbull.
Grant.
Councillor Wolf.
Grant.
Councillor Wheeler.
Grant.
Councillor Wood.
Grant.
Councillor Anderson.
Grant.
Councillor Craig.
Grant.
Councillor McClure.
Grant.
Councillor Ord.
Grant.
Councillor Patterson.
Grant.
Councillor Hood.
Grant.
Councillor Goldsworthy.
Grant.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you want to go back to Lee, or did Lee answer? Or?
She answered, yes. She.
Okay then. Okay. Okay then. The officer recommendations being granted, and that's unanimous. Thank you. Can we now move on to the other Dunston Hill 2, agenda item number 2?
Yes, certainly, Chair. So this is basically the other piece of the jigsaw that I was just talking about. So this application is for the 11 houses on the site of the former Woodside Center. So just to show you the reverse of the application site. So this application site is the walled garden area and then includes the pasture land at the north of the site. And as you can see, the rest where the 35 houses are is the land edged in blue. And again, just in the context of how this relates. So you can see it makes, although they are two separate applications and two application sites, they do jigsaw together and logically will come forward together as a single entity. So as with the outline and reserve matters application, this site is also in the green belt and in the conservation area, and your reports cover how that assessment has been made. And you can see on your screens there the particular scheme for the walled garden, and a bit closer in there. So you can see there the houses there are arranged in short terraces within the walled garden. Parking is provided for each unit. There are 5 affordable house units proposed. Taken on its own as a development of 11 houses, this wouldn't have triggered a requirement for any affordable housing at all. So officers do see the sort of combination of the reserve matters and this application as providing a betterment, because that does allow for affordable housing that we wouldn't otherwise be able to secure at all on this part of the site to be delivered, and that the affordable housing is on site rather than off site. Similarly, there's with the MSGP, there's a new policy requirement to secure accessible homes, and the houses within this part of the development would also meet that policy requirement. So again, the same image as previously, just to show the wider site. You'll note from your agendas that there are a number of conditions required relating to highway works. However, the application for these 11 houses in itself is considered to provide an appropriate level of parking and turning within the walled garden itself. We've had no representations at all on this particular application, and don't worry, I won't show you exactly the same photographs, but they're just to show that again, that's the walled garden. This is the access into the walled garden and the Woodside Center roof just on the right-hand side of the image, and then other images just specifically to show the height and condition of the walls. The proposal does include for the walls to be taken down because they're not structurally sound. They would be rebuilt using original material as far as possible, but the rebuilding will take into account any sort of potential residential amenity issues, so that the walls themselves don't result in any overshadowing or they're not sort of particularly overbearing, because I believe they're up to 4 meters high in some places. So this then's the back of that large building at the northern end of the site, and the grassland here. And in the next image is the land to be included in the for the ecological mitigation. And what this means is that for the Dunston Hill Hospital site as a whole, we can get site-wide and comprehensive mitigation strategy and a management scheme for this area. And the intention is that there would be, say, a management scheme, but also planting of an appropriate but diverse species mix. And again, that's another view of the land to the rear of that recreation building. So just an indication of the house types here. These are all 3 or 4 bed units, and that's the internal layout of that one, where it's got room in the roof space. And then the last of the house types, but again, these are all considered to provide adequate space for living. So officers are of the view that the inclusion of the walled garden has allowed for a more holistic scheme to be drawn up for the entire Dunston Hill Hospital site. It now provides on-site ecological mitigation and on-site affordable housing, and houses that meet new policy requirements to do with accessibility. The result of that's a betterment in what we would have had if we treated the outline completely separately to this scheme just for 11 houses and treated them both in isolation, but that does require a legal agreement to bind them together. So the recommendation on the screens there, members, is that in this case we're granting full planning permission subject to the conditions in your agendas, and subject to a legal agreement to tie this application to the reserve matters and to secure, my error, it should be on-site ecological mitigation and on-site affordable housing. Thank you. I'll take that down.
Thank you, Eleanor. Does anybody have any questions? Are you okay? Oh, Lynn?
He's got his hand up, Chair.
Oh, Keith Wood. Oh, sorry, Keith Wood.
Chair, I would like to ask a question. After we've had the vote, it's not affecting the decision that the panel will make regarding this application, but it's a question in general terms about this application. So I'd like to ask a question after we've decided, if that's okay. It's just a general question about planning at the end of the meeting. That's okay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it should be okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Give it a go and see what we.
Move that, Grant. Move the officer recommendation.
What's that? Move Grant. Okay.
He's in for a horse.
Right. It's been moved. Is it seconded?
I'll second that, Bob. Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded that the application be granted. Well, again, if you're in favour, grant. But against, refuse. Are you ready, Helen?
Yes, Chair, I'm ready.
Helen, Lee sent a message saying there's a bit of a time lapse when she.
Yeah, I've seen it. Thank you. Yeah, I've got it. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Burnett.
Grant.
Thank you. Councillor Caffrey. Grant.
Councillor Dickey?
Grant.
Councillor Ferdinand?
Grant.
Councillor Geddes?
Grant.
Councillor Curtin?
It worked fine this time. Grant.
Thank you. Councillor Lee?
Grant.
Councillor McCartney?
Grant.
Councillor McMaster?
Grant.
Councillor Oxbury?
Grant.
Councillor Turnbull?
Grant.
Councillor Waff?
Grant.
Councillor Wheeler?
Grant.
Councillor Wood?
Grant.
Councillor Anderson?
Grant.
Councillor Craig?
Grant.
Councillor McClure?
Grant.
Councillor Ord?
Grant.
Councillor Patterson?
Grant.
Councillor Hood?
Grant.
Councillor Goldsworthy?
Grant.
Thank
Okay,
you.
that's granted. The officer recommendation's been granted, and that's unanimous. Keith, can you hang on a minute? Mark, would you like to turn the live feed off? Okay, thank you. Is it off? It's gone off, do you think? Okay, thank you. Keith, did you want to